in a game. 20.
Swung on and driven to deep left. And a hit. Yankees win. Yankees win. Bernie Williams homers deep in the left field seat to lead off the 11th inning at a 1-run finish. And the Yankees beat the Orioles 5-4 to win Game 1 of the American League Championship Series. Burn, baby, burn. He's done it again.
Deep left. There it goes. Stepping into history. He's done it. He has done it. 62. Aaron Judge is the American League single-season home run leader. The AL King. Case closed.
What is going on, baseball fans? Jeremy Laracuente here for the Baseball Banter Broadcast. And as we saw in that open, we are going over the state of the franchise. On this particular series, we are looking at championship years to rebuilding years. Every single team has a story. And on this installment of the Baseball Banter Broadcast's state of the franchise, we are looking at the Atlanta Braves. So we have a special guest with us, Mr. Ken Anderson of the Braves Inside Source on X. Ken, what's going on, man?
Good, Jeremy. How you doing tonight?
Doing well. So obviously the Braves are in a very, very good spot, and we're going to break down all the ins and outs, everything looking at moves the front office has made, different decisions over the past off season and heading into the 2025 campaign and what lies ahead for this franchise. So definitely a good team to get into the conversation with. So give me kind of your initial first thoughts, just kind of gut reaction over the Braves, and then we'll kind of get into some specifics.
Well, the Braves, one of the best organizations in baseball. They're, I would say, top five. Everybody knows who they are. Been a disappointment the last few years. For 2 years, really good teams that failed to go to Philadelphia and win. And then, of course, last year, there was no team decimated more by injuries across the board. The Dodgers had a lot of injuries, of course, but the Yankees had them. But just for one of the major players, we only had our starting lineup for 4 innings of the season. Murphy got hurt 4 innings in, and that was it. And then we lost our big guns, Cy Young, candidate, and Strider, and then lost Acuna in May. So it was a rough year last year. We got into the playoffs, but we were on fumes, and San Diego was, of course, a really good team. So the franchise is in good shape, but the fan base is, of course, wanting us to get going, get back in the winning direction in the postseason.
For sure, just like the hat you're wearing, the 2021 World Series winner, so they definitely want to get back to that. So so as far as the team this offseason, not too much was done. Some of the acquisitions that were made were Nick Allen, Davis Daniel, Brian De La Cruz, a couple of Rule 5 guys that got picked up, but most notably the biggest offseason acquisition for you guys thus far has been Jurickson Profar. So of the moves that were made, what do you think is obviously the biggest standout?
Well, Profar is a huge for us. We had a hole in left field. We tried Kelnick out there, and I think he'll get a chance to try to play some with Acuna, being out the first few weeks or a month. But we definitely had a hole there, and we needed a more everyday player. Him being a switcher really helps us, too. We can move him around in the lineup. I think the biggest thing is we now can move Ozzie down in the lineup, which is what we probably need to do. So he'll be a big help. And then, like you said, we had a lot of weird minor league signings. Even had one today in Diekman, who signed a contract. We've got all these relievers. I can't even keep up anymore. It's 20-something plus relievers we have signed and players. I do think Garrett Cooper is somebody to keep an eye on, just because he is a good bat. So the one thing, if Marcell does get dinged up, I think Cooper he gets back to hitting well, could actually take that role or at least give us some depth there. Dela Cruz is a flyer, of course. But we're very happy with getting Profar. It kind of settled our fan base down a little bit because they were getting like we're not doing anything. He'll be a big acquisition. Him and Ozzy are friends. I think he'll fit right in. So it's a major add for us.
For sure, especially when you consider how much you lost this offseason, with like Max Fried going to the Yankees, stuff like that. So definitely can see how the fan base would be kind of restless prior to that Profar move. So when it comes to, and you kind of alluded to it earlier with the injuries, obviously some big time injuries last year to, like you said, Acuna Jr., to Strider. We know that Austin Riley dealt with some injuries throughout the course of the season, most notably late in the season with the fractured hand. What do you think is the most significant injury thus far for Atlanta going into the season, and kind of where do you see that heading for the 2025 campaign?
Well, definitely Strider. Can he come back and pitch innings for us? Because not only do we lose Max, which was a big loss, we also lost Charlie Morton. So that's a lot of innings that we lost out of the starting rotation. And so we're going to have to find them. And so we can't count on Strider giving us 180, but if he can somehow get in there 100, 120, that will help. Hopefully have some kids step up. Acuna, of course, he is kind of gets us going on top of that order, and we need him to be healthy. Another knee injury, I don't know how that's going to dictate his running. So we're gonna have to see how that comes back. But one of the things not really brought up with us is we need Ozzy to be healthy for a whole year. Every year, it seems like Ozzy keeps getting hurt, and I'm sure he's the most frustrated. But for fans, we're frustrated. He needs a full year. He's really worked hard this all season, so hopefully he'll stay healthy. That will help us. And but as you've seen, Riley is the stir for us. He's straw. He stirs that drink for us. And as soon as he went down in August, that's when we were probably done. He is the heart and soul of our team. He's probably overall the best player, when you really look at it. And so if he can stay healthy this year, that'll help too. But definitely Strider's the one that's probably the most impactful and needs to be healthy this year.
Absolutely, especially like you said with the lost innings, that Max Fried provided and Charlie Morton, Strider coming back and being healthy, being able to kind of take the ball every 5 days once he does get started. The rumor that I've heard has been like that they're probably holding him off for the first couple of weeks of the regular season and then ready to unleash him. So hopefully Braves that is the timetable for him.
Yeah, the first thing was a whole month, but now he's kind of up ahead. So, he's going to start in spring, so we'll see. So maybe, like you said, a couple of weeks, maybe he'll get there.
Yeah, and like you said, I think that Ozzy is one of the more underrated players in baseball. When he's healthy, this is a dynamic player for sure. And, being able to bring in a guy like Profar to be able to drop him in the order just makes him that much more of a threat if he can stay healthy, like you said.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, he'll be a big X factor for us. His health will. But it'll enable our lineup to be a little bit longer. And you got that power hitting switch hitter guy at the bottom lineup is really nice too. So.
For sure, and that segues perfectly into our next segment here, as far as who do you believe is the X factor for the Braves in 2025, and why would you say that?
Well, I want to touch on two tonight. One is because of the innings, definitely the pitching. We got 5 guys going to go down there in the spring. The biggest one, the X factor, would be Ian Anderson. That's who most of the country has heard of because he pitched big innings for us in the postseason before. When he came up as a youngster, he was a really good rookie. He's had arm surgery last year. I think he was hurt the year before. And so he would definitely be, because he'll add innings, and also he's out of options. So we really need to know if Ian's back. If he's back, then that will help. I think that's part of the reason we've kind of held off, is to try to see where he's at, and then we can kind of go. because we'll have to have innings from him and Holmes and A.J. Smith-Sharver, Hurston Waldrop, Bryce Elder. There'll be 5 guys trying to get in there to give us innings. But I wore this guy's jersey, number 23, Michael Harris. I'm ready for him to really break out. I mean, I really do. I think he can be a 30-30 guy. And I think this is the year he needs to do it. He needs to run more because I think Acuna will run less. He needs to put on the power. It's a homer hitting friendly left-handed bat in our ballpark. You know that. You've seen it. Ball jumps in right center and right field. He needs to be a 30-30 guy for us, and he needs to have that breakout year. He needs to get him a Gold Glove. He needs to be he needs to have a big year for us, and I think he's the X factor. I think he has a huge year. You'll see the whole offense just really get going, and I think we'll be off and running.
Absolutely. Now, in my estimation, when looking at the team, it's kind of an obvious answer, but Ronald Acuna Jr., I think, is the X factor for you guys. Seeing how he bounces back from the injury, seeing if he still has that dynamic, energy and power coming out of his legs, coming off of the torn ACL. And I think that when you look at what he was, in his healthy season, an MVP with the 40-70 season, I think that there's so much there if he can be healthy for the full year. And going into this 2025 campaign, obviously they're going to kind of slow play it to be able to make sure that he's healthy for the long run. And obviously Atlanta is, as you said at the top of this, one of the best teams in baseball, projected to be one of the best in terms of record, and they're going to want him for the postseason run. So for sure, kind of slow playing it at the beginning is the way to go, I do believe. But I think that if he gets off to a hot start once he gets going, that can really help kind of get this organization back to where we saw it just a few years ago in the World Series. So for sure, I think that Acuna is a big factor. But I do like your selection of Michael Harris the second. I think that he is absolutely a guy, like you said, that could be a 30-30 player, and it's definitely somebody to pay attention to this season. Now, when it comes to things,
Acuna's health is huge for us. Because, the last time he came back, he was not healthy. I mean, not completely healthy, you know what I'm saying? So I agree with you on that, definitely.
Yeah, definitely somebody to pay attention to as far as health, for sure. And then as we kind of transition here and look at the future for the Atlanta Braves, sometimes the top prospect list throughout MLB can sometimes be a little bit wonky, but with the Braves, Cam Caminiti, the left-handed pitcher, is listed as your top prospect. What can you tell me about him?
Got a big arm. He's a years away. I mean, he's a young kid, but he's got a big arm, and to lose Max and have him kind of maybe in a few years come back will ease that pain a little bit, because Max was a big left-handed arm for us, and I know Yankee fans are ecstatic about getting them. Gives him a chance to win a World Series, but he's a big arm, and he's got a really good off speed. We'll see how they progress with him. How fast they want to get him there. I would say probably 27, 28, probably the year, but. Who knows? Who knows? Michael Harris was going to be playing at, his age, though. And, but he's got a big time arm, and, I can see where people rank him as high as he did. For us this year, the prospects, and you've heard of him, A.J. Smith-Sharver's high on that list. He's got a big arm. He just really learned how to pitch. He didn't pitch really got to college. So he's got a fresh arm. So we'll see how he does. Greg Baldwin is the guy as far as hitters, big-time hitting catcher. We don't really have a spot, but, if Murph struggles or gets injured, I'm sure Chadwick Trump will back him up, but we can't lose our offense like we did last year. So if Baldwin can prove he can hit, hitting Major League's different AAA, but if he can prove it, he's got a chance to be there this year. But the one prospect that I would say that most the guys miss on is Drew Hackenberg. Drew Hackenberg is going to be a hoss. He's a big-time talent. In my eyes, I was a pitching coach in high school, retired pitching coach, and that's I go to that, and I think he's a can't miss. And I can see him up here this year too, Hackenberg. So the national audience can kind of look in on Drew Hackenberg of maybe by the end of the year. Who knows what kind of spring you have, but I think he'll definitely be up for us this year. He's that good.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Atlanta's known for what they're able to do with pitchers. So definitely being able to see kind of what they have in that farm system is something to look forward to for sure.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Now, as we kind of jump into, again, kind of looking into this season and kind of having our own thoughts and ideas, I want to get into the bold prediction and what you feel is kind of your boldest prediction about the 2025 Atlanta Braves.
Well, I touched on it a little bit. There's two that I've got kind of killed a little bit on Twitter, but it happens. But I do think Michael can reach 30-30. And that's, that's asking a lot of him, but I think he can get there. I think it'd be easier for him to get there with the stolen bases this year. I think he's learned how to run a little bit more. I think he'll run a little bit more just because we'll need somebody to run. And but I think his power will show up. He goes on these great power barrages anyhow. He has some of the most majestic home runs, so it's in there. So I think he will. And I also think Ozzy's going to hit at least 35 homers. Now, I went on Twitter today and said I think he can even get to 40, which may be a little too much. But I think he can definitely get to 35. He's hit 33. At healthy Ozzy, I think he can get to 35. And because with Matt being in our lineup and Harris being in our lineup, now that we got Profar too, I think a lot of people want to throw lefties against us. And because that Ozzy gets hit from his stronger side, which is his right side, he's a very good hitter right. He's more powerful left-handed, but he gets a really good bat to ball right-handed. So that's my two big bold predictions for the Braves this year. Michael 30-30 and Ozzy hitting 35 home runs this year.
Gotcha. So my bold prediction is a little bit more on the downtrodden side for Atlanta, is that I think that you guys are going to fall out of the postseason contention because of your bullpen. I think that the bullpen is going to off up a lot of leads for you guys. I don't think that Atlanta did enough to strengthen your bullpen. The front office did enough to really strengthen that bullpen this year. I think that you guys are going to have a lot of leads going in late, and that the bullpen is going to be what costs you guys a spot. Now, obviously, a lot of predictions have you guys very favorably when it comes to the postseason, and we'll get more into that in a little bit. But I think that the bullpen and fortifying it should have been a bigger concern for the front office this year.
It's actually my biggest concern. I don't believe our bullpen is as bad as maybe that. But the problem for me is Iglesias is a year older, and we know we're closers. That's, got to watch that. And so when he can't pitch, or say he's off a tick, who is that guy? I don't see a guy. That's the one thing. I do think Pierce is a really good seventh inning guy. I do think Bummer's numbers, and you've seen the numbers, are very good, and I think he'll pitch well. Dylan Lee isn't going to surprise a lot of people. He's going to step right into A.J. Minter's role. Losing A.J. hurts. He will help the Mets tremendously, but he great young man, great leader too. So he will help their pen. Trust me. The Mets pen got better just by adding AJ. Not even if he pitches. His mentality will help that pen. But I think it's a lot stronger. We have a kid, Dayswell Hernandez, who has all the stuff. We'll see if he can control. But yeah, the big question is that eighth inning. Who is going to throw that eighth inning? I don't think we're done. A lot of people tap into. You've already tapped into me. I've got a little bit friends on the inside. AA keeps everything hush, but we're not done. And I don't know where that's going to come from. David Robertson is somebody who I have tapped into, and I've mentioned to Braves fans, he seems to be a fit. Now, our money situation is kind of weird, so I don't know, but we may get somebody in trade. I keep telling everybody, watch that Cardinals market. I don't know what they're going to be doing. I don't think they know what they're doing. If Aaron gets traded, they start selling whatever, there's a chance maybe Halsey there. I don't know. I know he's, Braves fans get torqued because he said a few things, but get over that. You got to win ball games. You need somebody to pitch that eighth inning or close. But your question mark is 100% fan base's biggest question. and we closed out games. And it's a very good point. I think we'll still get in the postseason. I think that would be a big ask. We'd have to fall apart offensively because I don't know if you look at the National League, but I think 7 teams are going to make the postseason. We're still one of the top 7 teams, even with the bullpen at least, I think. So, but
no, I agree, and that's why you kind of try to get real bold with some of these predictions.
Mm-hmm.
But I do agree with you. I think that it's been a very, very surprisingly quiet offseason for Alex Anthopoulos. I think that he is the best GM in baseball. A couple of years ago on this, my YouTube channel, and this YouTube channel that put together a video about it because of all the moves that he's been able to make, the acquisitions that he's made, but even more so than that, just signing guys to such team-friendly deals that allows him to make other moves. And so I think that he's been very, very quiet this offseason. I think that there has been some relievers capable of, signing some friendlier contracts for you guys. Obviously, the financial situation is something that is always up in the air, but for sure, I think David Robertson would be a good fit. I did see you post that on X earlier today, and yeah, for sure, I think that would be a guy that could absolutely work in Atlanta's bullpen for sure, especially in that setup role, like you were talking about.
Yeah, one of the things that AA has done with all these signings, there are a lot of veteran arms. Now, we're going to sit back and watch. What does Chad Kuhl have? What does Diekman have? What does Jordan Weems have? All these guys. Perdomo. We like Perdomo. He's got a good arm. Perdomo, we got to keep him, but I think he'll be on the roster. So relief pitchers are funny. They're funny. They have bad year. The guy for the Yankees was their best relief pitcher was Luke Weaver, and he was hot garbage. So maybe that's what AA is doing. I'll sign a bunch of them, and I'll find somebody that's having their year. We won the 2021 World Series, and our biggest relief pitcher that year was Tyler Matzik. He had pitched in Mexico 2 years before that. So that just tells you, late pitchers are funny. You can go find them. I think Alex is trying to do that, but it's definitely a wait and see. It's going to be an interesting spring for us.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very interesting spring for a lot of teams. Atlanta definitely being one of them for me. Now, when it comes to the biggest question that you believe facing the organization in 25, what would you say that is? Is it the bullpen?
It's the bullpen. I mean, it's got to be. I think the innings too in the starter. That's why those first 5 go down there. Let's see what happens there. And you've seen me on there. If they all kind of flake out, I think we may jump in the Andrew Heaney market just to get innings eat. I think it's too late to really make a trade, but Alex is very creative. Like I said, I think he's the best GM in baseball, at least up there, top 3, and he can get creative. We had to. But it's definitely the bullpen and, and then our health. Can we stay healthy? Because, again, the one thing we don't have depth, and you found out in last year in 24, we don't have depth in our hitters. Now, he's tried to sign a lot of guys that maybe can help. If our big guns go down, we don't have those top prospects that you can put in, like the Mets did with Vientos. They went back-to-back. They went Beatty. He didn't quite work out. They went Vientos. They just kept putting young kids in there. So last year they brought up Acuna's little brother. He hit a couple of big home runs for them. So, the Phillies did the same thing with his name just escaped me. The young kid that played really good defense in center for them. So they're Ross, and they're playing. They're finding. We don't really have that right now. We're getting there, but they're years away. So that's definitely a question. Health and the bullpen is now is very much.
Yeah, that led into my biggest question for you guys is whether or not you'd be able to kind of push and stay above water, waiting for Strider and for Acuna Jr. to get back.
Have you seen our first week too? We go to San Diego and LA, first 7 games, and
tough stretch.
Yeah, it's tough. So you don't want to get off to a 1-6 start, or 2-5 even. If you can somehow go 3-4 out there, I think you take it. Come home but our schedule early is kind of rough, especially without them. So I think we're an interesting team in the spring. And if I'm the Phillies and Mets, I want to get off to a good start. Because if we can, because as we got healthy before Riley got hurt, we started putting pressure on the Phillies. We were kind of coming back. Then Riley went down and we were done. So I think those three organizations have a lot of respect for each other, and they know every win counts, even the ones in April. And I think the American League East, the Yankees are in the same kind of thing. Those two, the Eastern divisions, they know you got to get every win you can. So, yeah, the start of our season is going to be very interesting. I agree.
Yeah, absolutely, without question. Now, when it comes to, and you spoke about Riley a moment ago, so I want to ask you about the offense and how you would grade it out. What do you think is the big thing for your offense, and how would you grade it?
I think with Profar, you can give it a B plus, maybe an A minus, depending on Murph. If is Murphy going to come back, or do we see Murphy? Because catchers are funny. Their legs start getting under and they start losing their hitting abilities. A lot of times they can't get it back. So let's see how his year is. We don't ask a lot of ours yet, but the 7 big guns can really hit. And I think anybody goes in the lineup they got to navigate that. So I'd B plus, A minus. As far as the bench, we don't really have one. So you don't really need one anymore. Like I said, there's not a lot of depth in front of it unless Cooper, gains form. De La Cruz, they can figure out what was wrong with his swing last year because he was a pretty good hitter a couple years ago. But I'd still say I'd probably give it a B plus, just because I don't really know about Murphy yet. And if Murphy hits, he can become an A minus type of lineup.
Yeah, I had it as an A overall. I think that when you look at what that lineup is projected to look like now, especially with Profar in it, I think that there's such a balance there. Lefty, righty, obviously with the switch hitter and Profar, but also the power aspect. And you have guys that are able to put the ball in play. And I think that for this organization, being able to kind of have that balance from, power hitting guys and guys that can be more contact oriented, I think that this is a tremendous lineup, especially in that very difficult, National League and National League East. So I definitely am very big on the Braves offense going into this season. And obviously, with Acuna and the dynamic player that he is, once he gets back and really firing on all cylinders, that guy's an absolute game changer. So I'm very big on the offense for you guys in that division.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page. Yeah, if they stay healthy and they hit, they're going to be, one of the top 3 offenses in the National League. To me, easily, and even off a tick, they're still one of the top. Even if they have a couple guys down, they're loaded, and they'll have to hit, a lot this year probably, especially early to win games. They really will.
Yeah, now that leads into the question about the pitching, and how would you grade out the pitching for Atlanta this year?
Well, if you graded the starters, would be definitely an A minus, maybe a B plus, not knowing who the 5th is, because you throw Sale, Lopez, Strider, and Schulenbach, that's a dynamic 4. You have to bring that bullpen in, and I think that really drops it right now. And it's either a B minus or just a C plus. I mean, until we know exactly what this bullpen is, you've got to have major concerns going into the season. And Stent knows that, Kranitz knows that. So, Naye knows that. So they got to get down there and they got to get to work, and they got to quickly figure out which arms can help. And then they got to figure out roles. You know how that is. Bullpen's about roles. Just because you pitch a 7th inning doesn't mean you can pitch an 8th or 9th inning. So figure out who has ice water in their veins, when can they pitch, who can pitch it 3 days in a row, all that stuff. So it's coming up. But I guess right now with the state, just because the starters and not knowing really how Strider is going to be, I think you just have to at this moment give it a B minus or C plus right now.
Yeah, that's exactly what I had, was a B minus for this. With the questions to Strider and how much time he's going to be out to start the year, kind of what the roles are in the bullpen, like you spoke about. So yeah, kind of on the same page with you there as well when it comes to this pitching staff for Atlanta. But like I said, I think that they're very much a pitching franchise, a factory coming out of that organization over the years. They've been able to develop arms and and really get the most out of the guy. So definitely something to look forward to. But I think as of right now, I would agree with you with a B- grade.
Yeah, I agree. Yep, same page. We'll see how it goes. I mean, best case scenario, Strider comes out and he's able to pitch week one. Hernandez has control, and they go, "What?" He's got. I'm telling you what, he's got a big time arm. This kid can throw. I mean, he's under. I mean, you put him in the 8th inning, he's got control. Bummers stuff meets his analytics, and Dylan Lee is there, and and I don't know, one of those ragged arms they signed, looks like a 7th inning guy. All of a sudden, that becomes a really good pitching staff. So, and Ian Anderson does work out, or AJ Smith-Sharver has finally found it, then that's going to help them. But right now, going into the spring, you got to honestly say there definitely needs some help in that pitching staff.
Yeah, for sure. So, kind of looking ahead to this season, obviously, as I alluded to earlier, the Braves are highly, highly projected. When you look at both Pacoda and Fangraphs, have you first in the National League East. Pacoda has you guys at 92 and 70 for the year, and Fangraphs has you at 93 and 69. So where exactly do you think that the Braves will land in terms of the divisional ranking?
We're probably the biggest question of the three teams. I believe healthy. If Cunha and Strider's healthy, we're about spot on right there. And we're going to beat up on each other too. I've seen some people saying, and I've got friends on the Mets side and the Phillies side. Matter of fact, I've known Zach Wheeler since he was 12. So, we kind of pull this 96, it's not going to happen in the NL. If it does, it's because one of the teams got hurt. I mean, it's going to take probably 94 wins. You probably win the division. We're going to be in there right now. Not knowing who our 8th inning guy is and all that, I would probably say the Phillies are probably the team should be first, and then us second. I question the Mets. I know Mets fans are jacked about their lineup, but from 5 down through 9, not so much. And for me, could be proven wrong. Hope they do step up for their fans. So we'll see. They have questions in their bullpen as well. So I think the Phillies are probably the team right now, that I would, if a gambling man wanted to put some money on, that's probably who I would say right now, and not knowing what the Braves situation is. And then I would probably have us second and the Mets third, but it's marginal between all three of them. Because if they find bullpen help, the two Braves and Mets, that really, gets them going. If the Phillies, now they've been lucky. Wheeler, Nola, they've not been injured. They didn't have their injuries like the Mets and the Braves have. Eventually just happens. If that does, that hurts their team. That cripples their team. I can see them falling to third. So those three are really close in my eyes. I don't know how you feel, but that's how I see those three.
No, I agree completely. I think that, and the projection that I had for you guys was second in the division. And that being said, in my estimation, I think you guys are still going to end up with 91, 92 wins, even coming in second in that division. So I genuinely believe that you guys are one of the strongest teams in baseball. And I think that for Atlanta going into this, Philly and the Mets, like you said, all three of you guys are bunched so close together that all it takes is one injury or two to kind of knock them down to third in that bracket. So for sure, as I have it seen projected, I definitely think that it's second right now for you guys because of, the reasons that you said, not knowing kind of where the bullpen slots out, not knowing how long you're going to be without Strider and Acuna. So I think that there are some questions in that, but for sure, there's definitely a lot of positives for you guys. And I definitely see you getting over 90 wins, even with the questions.
You have to take in the first week too. I mean, we're going to play the first week. That's one of the hardest parts of our schedule, maybe without being ready. And those wins and losses count right then. So, we will see as the season, goes on. But yeah, I definitely think, it's going to be very interesting. The most interesting part to all three schedules, I was talking with, one of my Phillies guys, is how you're playing when you play Washington. Washington's going to be very good. And when you're playing them, you can, if you're not playing well, they can put a 3 out of 4 on you, or definitely, and they even sweep you 3 games. You're not playing well, and that's going to hurt you from winning the division. So that's
100%.
That's just something to keep an eye on.
Yep. And how they play against the Marlins, even more important, because that's a team that is that's a very different breed right now. What's happening down in Miami, so that's going to be a factor in it as well.
Yeah, and that's been favorable. We've owned them, and the Phillies and Mets, for whatever reason, have really stubbed their toe against them. And I'm sure going into the season, they're going to try to make a point. We got to beat these guys. That's going to be like a AAA team down there, and we've got to. Who has good pitching? That's the thing. They have a AAA team and they always have good pitching. So if you're not playing well, they can beat you. So you're right. It's going to be a fun division to watch here.
Yep, definitely one of the more important divisional battles is definitely between the 3 of you guys right now, and one of the best divisions in terms of competition right now, I believe, as well.
Yes, sir. I agree.
So as we wrap up, basically we're going to get to the whole naming of this series, and what do you believe is the state of the franchise for the Atlanta Braves in 2025?
We're a World Series contender. I mean, that's why you have to look at it when you're a Braves. Like I said, I think there's about, I don't name them, but there's like 7 organizations in baseball. They go in thinking they should be in the World Series. Now, they don't always put the team on the field that probably can get there. We didn't last year. By the end of the year, we were not a World Series contender. But going into the year, we're definitely a World Series contender team. We'll need a few things to go right, and health is always one of them. Let's face it. I think everybody in baseball knows who the big dog is now. And now you're just – I made a comment on Twitter. I don't know if you got to see it, but I've talked to some of the fans. I think that's also why you're seeing the signings the way you are, is that unless you're just a major piece, like a Soto or a Fried, or even for us was a Profar, we needed a left field. The marginal stuff, people are just not diving into, because the way they look at it is the Dodgers are going to have the best record in baseball. We don't have to beat the Dodgers over 162. All we got to do is beat the Dodgers in a series. And to be honest with you, the Yankees kind of gave that series up. They did not play their best ball, and the Padres had them beat. So I think most teams are looking at that. I think that's how we look at it. Over a long haul, they're probably going to be a better team, but we can beat them in a series because you have Sale game 1, Strider's healthy, Schwellenbach, Lopez. That's static, and it's hard to beat that team. Now we're going to have to shore up that back end, and we can hit well enough, and we hit home runs, which that's what you have to do in the postseason. So we can beat anybody in the postseason. We got to get there healthy, and we got to get there with some better than what we have right now on paper bullpen. But yeah, we'll handle our own, and I think the Phillies feel the same way. They haven't done a lot this postseason. I mean, you look at this all season, these big teams have not really. Now, DePoto said some crazy stuff in Seattle, but I think that's how most everybody's looking at it. They're just not going to. They're going to go for it. I think that's why you saw the Alonso situation happen. That's why you're seeing happening with Bregman right now. Unless you're just that guy they know they got to have, all the marginal stuff, they're willing just to kind of wait and see what happens. I don't know if you agree with that, but that's how I look at it.
I 100% agree. I think that, and you've seen it, a lot of these guys that have been kind of journeymen that have helped, championship caliber teams that get these deals are now heading to kind of the mid-tier, the smaller markets, just to get on board so that they can get traded at the deadline. I think about a Tommy Pham with Pittsburgh. This guy a couple of years ago that would have gotten on with a championship caliber team, that would have gotten on with like an Atlanta or a Phillies squad, just to have that veteran presence, that platoon bat. But those offers aren't there for those teams that are kind of World Series caliber teams like Atlanta. So I definitely agree with you 100% on that.
Yeah, I think so, and I think you saw it today with Kenley having to go to the Angels. We don't really need to spend a lot of money on a closer right now. We don't even know what our situation is. But that's a team that should fall out of it by deadline, or maybe want to move him. and you can just pick him up then if you need another bullpen arm.
Yep.
And I totally agree. I'm watching all these teams, and I think that's what you're seeing right now. Is we're going to play for the postseason. Now, also, the expanded playoffs have done that too. You don't have to win you saw the Diamondbacks and the Rangers both get to the World Series. The Phillies did it, so you don't have to be that kind of team. You can still, and you get hot in October, you can win a World Championship, and I think everybody's going to that accordingly. They're just like, you even saw it a little bit. You see it in other sports. Now you see it in baseball. You've been seeing it in other sports. You saw it where the Philadelphia just kind of locked down. The Eagles just locked down. That we're not going to go for the number 1 seed. We're going to make sure Jalen Hurts is healthy. He was healthy, and they won a Super Bowl. And every Eagles fan will be happy because of that. So I think you're starting to see that in baseball. Like, let's just get our team, get to the end, and then we'll see what happens.
I agree. I think that is kind of the mindset now because, since they changed this postseason format in 22 with that extra wild card team, it's been more wild card teams than division winners that have gone through the whole postseason. So I definitely agree with you that it's a changing format because of that extra wild card spot, and that it is kind of, the momentum stays with you when you keep playing than when you have that time off. So
I agree. I do.
What were you saying?
Well, I was going to tell you one more thing because they'll kill me on here if I don't add this one thing, and I hope you got a little time for this. You didn't ask me what the most frustrating thing for a Braves fan is. So I told him I was going to throw this in there, and then you can make the rest of your country realize what's going on down here, and you probably know this. But the Braves, and I made sure I wrote it down, the Braves were the 5th most attended team in baseball. They're the 5th most attendance. We have a park that only holds 42,000, so pretty much we pack it every night. They're the 3rd most in sales of MLB merchandise. They also own their own property. They own the Battery, which is making hand dollars over fist. And they went up on season ticket sales 2 years ago, 22%. They went up this year, 25%. A lot has to do with hosting an all-star game. I'm sure they're trying to capitalize on that. They're making a lot of money. And for the fan base right now, it seems like they're tightening the purse. Now, we're owned by an individual. We would love to be owned by Steinbrenner or Cohen or some of these things that, even LA they don't care. They're deferring money like crazy. I don't want us to do that, but the fan base does have an argument, and AA is not really tapped in. He always says we have the money to spend if we need it. But it seems like this offseason, you're going to have to kind of show us. Maybe that's at the trade deadline. Maybe that's next offseason. Maybe we extend Acuna. Maybe we extend Albies. Wellenbark is somebody we probably want to buy Arb years out if he pitches like that again. I'm sure he's got a plan. Right now for the fan base, knowing how much money this team's making, I promise them I'd get it out there. It's frustrating. It's very frustrating that we've dropped. And I forgot who was it? I know you remembered it. It was one of the articles that came out, and we were the biggest drop. Us and the Mets. The Mets make sense. They made a $360 million payroll. Us two are the most dropped in payroll from the year before.
That's crazy.
And
especially how good of a team you have right now.
Yeah. A lot of it's because we're locked up, and so the salaries don't need to go up. But I think a lot of people would have liked to have seen us maybe a little bit more than, some of the market, maybe picking up some people, you know what I'm saying? But we'll see. AA's got a plan. Like you said, we think he's the best GM in baseball. Let's see how that plan pans out. But I did tell him I would definitely get that on this broadcast. They're frustrated. Where's the money? Why are we kind of holding up on money? We're trying to stay below the luxury tax. They say no, but it sure seems like we are. So that tells the team, if you tell us, no, we're really not, and you kind of spin, you think, okay, we do still have 30, 40 million. You think, well, we'll address those needs. We can pick up a trade. So say maybe you trade and get a Pablo Lopez if Minnesota falls out, and you pick up an $18 million a year contract because you can afford it. But right now, it doesn't look like, so I told him I'd make sure to get it out there, and I'm sure my guys I talk to inside that brass are not going to be happy I brought it up, but I question them every day. Send them emails to the brass and stuff like, why are my season tickets going up 25%? Why am I season in all this? Why are we making so much money? And yet, though, we have an off season like this. So that's going to be a good question going forward that, you know, the rest of the country can follow.
Absolutely. No, and I think that that's something going around baseball right now. We see, you know, a ton more money coming in. You know, baseball year over year now is making more money than they have in the past. You know, every year it's more and more revenue into the sport, and yet we're not seeing that translate onto the field for most teams. I would say about 95% probably are not seeing that money translate onto the field. You know, obviously when you have guys like Steve Cohen that are just shelling out $800 million on a player, obviously that money then feels like it's skewed when they look at the total amount being spent. I seen an article from Jeff Passan earlier today that the Juan Soto deal alone was more money than 22 teams combined this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, and Atlanta was one of those teams that hasn't spent. So it's very much, I think, a whole situation around baseball where teams are not putting that money back onto the field. And it's definitely something that we has to be monitored. And I think that, you know, with this new CBA that's coming in 2026, I think there's going to be a lot that gets addressed. And I'm just praying that we don't get a lockout then, but that's kind of where it looks like it's trending towards.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I am too. So I feel the same way. We're on the same page.
So this has been an awesome discussion. Absolutely, looking at one of the best teams in all of baseball in the Atlanta Braves. Ken, you know, kind of let everybody know where they can find you at if they want more content from you.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, Braves Inside Source. I used to have my own name, and I've done away with that. That's more from a tag. I went to Georgia Tech, and it got a little confusing, so I just did away with that. Just really want to do Braves stuff on Twitter. But it's at Boyd PC15. It's written right there. Braves Inside Source. And
so I want to thank Ken for jumping in with us here today. Really appreciate it. Looking at the Atlanta Braves. So definitely something that is an organization that is one of the best in all of baseball. So without a doubt, a team to be paying attention to this year. So once again, want to thank Ken for jumping on again on Twitter or X at Boyd BOYD PC15 if you want to check out more from the Braves Inside Source. So I want to thank you guys for joining us on this video, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.